Hello, everyone. It's like first disclaimer, I'm not the founder. It's like, I wish I was, and I'm not. But yeah, welcome everyone to this panel where three foreigners talk about why Estonia and how great Estonia is and what's bad and what's good about it. As announced, I've been here last time about 15, 16 years ago. I was much younger, I was a student, I was interrailing around Europe, so a lot of things have changed for me since then. But a lot of things have changed for this lovely host country of ours as well. We're going to go into that. It's developed, there's talks about unicorns and investments and so on. But I'm here moderating. More important, here are my guests. I'm going to let them introduce themselves first. Cindy and John, would you just say a few words about what you guys do and everything around it?
Sure.
Cindy.
Hi, Cindy Revol. As you can probably guess, that I am not Estonian. I am based in Dallas, Texas. And so we have come a long way to be here, and we are thrilled to finally be here. I work for a firm called Perot, Jain. We're a family office, and we invest in venture capital on behalf of our two partners. It's just their family capital that we invest. So we are very excited about the opportunities in Estonia. Our strategy is really centered around investing in things that has made our family successful in the past. So our two partners run other operating companies. So how can we be a partner to our portfolio companies to enable them to grow and scale and acquire new customers and build their products within industries that our partners and our families know very well, and provide unique strategic advantages by granting access to some of the top executives in their field and really be an enabler to growth for our portfolio. So the industries where we focus center around our operating partners companies, which include digital health and remote operations, primarily in India, and then also our partner runs a global real estate development company called Hillwood, which is a huge development company. And one of our flagship developments is an area in North Texas that is one of the largest inland ports ever created. So massive amounts of container volume and freight moving in and out of that region. So we're very focused on the prop tech and mobility and freight transportation, as well as infrastructure technologies as well. And so we've created an initiative between Perot Jain as a capital partner, Hillwood, and all of our tenants in this region. It's called Alliance Texas. So all of our tenants within Alliance to form what we call the Mobility Innovation Zone. So we're really excited about bringing some of the top autonomous trucking companies, drone companies, from aviation to ground, and then of course lots of different use cases within AI and robotics, and different methods of connectivity and different ways of building infrastructure all in one place. So with major corporations like Amazon and Walmart to early stage startups. So we're really excited about some of the opportunities we're seeing out of Estonia, which I'll talk more about later.
And John Bradford from Dynamo Ventures.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. My name is John Bradford. I'm an old fart, so I've actually been in and out of Estonia for about 12 years now. And probably some may or may not know me from being one of the co-founders of Startup Wise Guys back in 2010, 2011. And have been back and forth through Estonia multiple times. My day job today is I'm an early stage being pre-seed seed fund that invests in only supply chain and mobility. And for context, what does that mean? Supply chain we think of as the movement of boxes. Mobility we think about as the movement of people. Why am I sitting here? The fund is based in the US, but about a third of our investments are international. We haven't done one yet in Estonia, not for the want of trying. I'll come back to that in a minute. But we have investments as far away as Indonesia, Kenya, Dubai, through Berlin, London, Berlin, Mexico, Canada. If we call can we call Canada international? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure Canadians would like you to do so.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Awesome. My turn quickly, because I'm sure, or I guess you probably haven't heard about my company and what we do. We're called Infobip. One of the reasons why I'm here is because we're opening an office in Estonia as we speak. I'm sure most of you here know Bolt, for example. That you know Bolt, right? So, for example, every time you get interact with Bolt as a customer, any message, push, communication you receive from them, we power that stuff. The company is called Infobip. We are originally Croatian. I don't know how many Croatian companies are here, but I'm sure not a lot. We're not at Estonia level yet, but we're a first Croatian unicorn and one of the few bootstrapped unicorns in the world. I haven't founded it, as I said before, but I know a few tricks and secrets from the founders, so I can tell you now. It's just interesting stories from the beginning. Anyway, so we are all somehow connected to Estonia. Me more recently, except my train experience 16 years ago. But how did you come across Estonia for the first time? I mean, John, we can start with you. You were involved with Startup Wise Guys from early on. But was this the first interaction founding this? How did you initially hear about Estonian tech particularly, right?
Yeah, I ran an accelerator program way back in 2009, which feels like a very long time ago.
Before the internet, right?
Not quite, but we had pigeons and they're kind of little dogs with baskets in the back of them and things. Of the 10 teams, I randomly ended up with an Estonian team and a Lithuanian team. And kind of as we roll through the programs, it was kind of like something interesting happening here. Why are Estonians turning up in the middle of the UK? Which led me to put my feet down here and spend a week here, and have been coming ever since. We can probably get into some of the detail, but even 10, 12 years ago felt very different from a lot of other Eastern European, and actually arguably even European locations. I wouldn't necessarily level it as just purely an Eastern thing.
Awesome. Cindy, how does a Texan hear about Estonia?
Yeah.
Family office in Texas.
Yeah. And we're small too, so we're not necessarily a big VC from Silicon Valley or anything. So it was really my partners are pretty global people, and they were traveling in this region and learned a lot about the e-government and the digital infrastructure, and was really fascinated by how that all came about. So really tasked me and my colleague who's sitting right there to do some research and learn more about the different opportunities. And it was really more focused starting around kind of like the digital government and everything that y'all have here. But as we dug deeper, we learned about all of I think at the time I think there's 10 unicorns now, but I think at the time there were like 5 or 6. And but even then we were very impressed and noticed that there were lots of really cool opportunities coming out of the region. And so ultimately we said, hey, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of US participation, at least in the early stage, so kind of in that seed investment stage. And so how do we get involved? How do we leverage this? This is an opportunity. And it's also kind of helped form the strategy for how we can be more global in general. So we were able to join the Estonian Venture Capital Association, not being an Estonian venture capitalist and not having any investments in Estonia. They were very gracious, and actually I think we're excited to have us join just because we were so different. And they hosted a roundtable for us, and we got to know a bunch of the local VCs, and we're very impressed by what we saw. And we made a strategy decision around how we would access new geographies via investing with a partner. So we made the decision to become a limited partner and invest in Terra Ventures, which is one of the top venture capital firms here in Estonia. And they've been a fabulous partner, and they're actually why we're here today. And so, I mean, it was all fortuitous, but it was pretty amazing how welcoming everybody was. And the more and more people we're meeting, the more and more excited we are about the opportunities here. Everything in the U.S. is just way over the top at this point. There's lots of competition, and we feel that the opportunity here is just unlimited right now, and we're excited for the companies that we're seeing.
Does the fact that you look at Estonia and the Baltics from what you guys do in the UK and the US respectively, does it make you a little bit unique? Do your peers and colleagues also know what you're talking about when you? I mean, two very different perspectives.
Yeah.
I assume some less than the other, but
I would say the response I got when I told people I was going to Estonia, they were like, was very much like, wait, what? Wait, where are you going? So I think at least in the early stage investment, it's definitely not very common. I do think with the success that y'all are having, I think it'll probably become more common. You might see more U.S. investors here, but at least in our area where we operate, I don't see a lot of folks. I would even here, most of the people I've met have not been U.S. They've all been from either the Baltic region or Europe. Which I'm more than happy to meet as many of you as possible. We're really just trying to expand our network here and build out our ecosystem. And ideally, if the U.S. market is a market of interest to you, we'd love to help you enter that market or be a strategic partner for you in that market. So that's kind of our angle.
John, I guess in the UK, in London, like Estonia is a little bit probably more well known than in Texas.
Yeah.
But how many of your peers, how many of other VCs based out of London, we know there are quite a few, are actually actively looking into the Baltics, into Estonia particularly?
I think the last couple of years, because of all the insanity of the pandemic, as I describe, has kind of leveled the playing ground. And one of the interesting dynamics is actually still getting to Estonia is a bit of a pain in the ass, let's be honest. Most people have to connect through somewhere. There's not as many direct flights. And actually, in some respects, you could argue that if you think about the quality of the startups which come out of Estonia, even without having those direct flights, actually demonstrates how credible the location is. I recently read a survey which was in the States, there is actually a direct correlation between the emergence of unicorns and direct flights from San Francisco.
Oh, yes.
So if you can investors have historically been very lazy and kind of gone, like, if you're not coming to my office, just not interested in speaking to you, they've stretched that a little bit, which is if I can get a direct flight to your city or location, that there is a definite increase in the amount of capital which flows as a result of that.
Yeah, isn't a point of having junior analysts like doing that and going to all these places it's hard to fly?
Well, analysts basically sit behind a desk and just kind of spend their life doing cold calls to startups, so less so there, but as we all know, historically and probably even now still going forwards, the importance of being able to sit in a room with someone and look them in the eye. Clearly, maybe the way to think about it in reverse is that Estonians maybe have been a lot more willing to get on planes and come to London for fundraising, where some of maybe the other Baltic states or other European countries have been much more inward focused. In some respects, that ambition, which has been demonstrated by those who've gone before, has really made a big difference. One of the things I'd also say quickly as a promotion to Cindy, is that many investors stand up and talk about the things that they promised to deliver in terms of value and stuff. I can say, because just coincidentally, pure coincidence, two of my portfolio teams actually are working with the Perot office in Texas in this, I call it a big playground sandbox, where they actually have real vehicles, autonomous vehicles operating, and hopefully soon drones as well. You already have drones.
We have drones, but we're looking at drones for different applications and different ways of using different types of air mobility. So not just drones, planes as well. To solve, we focus right now a lot. We think the opportunity in autonomy and air mobility is that mid-mile. So
Yeah.
mid-mile and a little bit last mile,
Basically, it's Texas. They can do what the hell they like.
because it's big.
Also, yeah.
Lots of space. is
And,
what I
and
mean.
there is a certain attitude of
I was about to say freedom, but yeah, there you go.
Well, yeah.
a libertarian style to their government.
All right, we're right about halfway through the panel, so now we're going to talk how terrible Estonia is for half. No, I'm just joking. It's not going to happen, but we're going to discuss. I mean, it's obviously a great ecosystem. I'm here for the first time at a conference. Today, I've heard at least 10 times that there are 10 unicorns on stage, so we're not going to go too much into that. But what makes a great ecosystem, Estonia or no Estonia? Just like, what are your opinions, like 2-3 key parameters to make a great ecosystem, except direct flights to San Francisco, obviously, which is like one thing.
Even just direct flights is important. Increasing flights.
I'll counter to that and say Dallas, you can fly anywhere, and our startup venture ecosystem is wanting. So there's not too many VCs. Most people, when they think Texas and startup, they think Austin, which is really true. I mean, that's where most of the VCs and startups are, and that's what we're actually trying to change a little bit, is to identify what Dallas is good at, and attract the companies. They don't have to move there, but attract the technology and really operate there and show what you can do and play on our playground and work with real clients, moving real things. We want to help. We want to help you do that. But the question was not that. It was
the ecosystem parameters.
the ecosystem. Yeah, direct flights may or may not be important depending on where you're looking.
Yeah.
I think the support of the government and the infrastructure here has just been phenomenal, and I think that has clearly gone a very long way, both attracting the talent and the entrepreneurs, but as well as the capital as well. And I think those are, and then the universities and the education systems and things that really just build that ecosystem. And I think that's not always easy to find all in one place. But that's my perspective. I don't know if you want to add.
A few more with John, maybe.
I don't know if I haven't sat through all of the different conversations, but the reality is we're sitting in a world which is a little bit different than it was 12 or 8 weeks ago. And the reality is that in any growing and emerging ecosystem, and clearly Estonia is punching well above its weight, is the next limiting factor is actually going to be resource. The amount of talent and engineers which kind of sit behind the scenes. You can't have 10 unicorns in an environment which is 1.3 million people, something like that. At a certain point, there will be a choke which kind of will limit that. And I know, for example, Wise has historically looked at Ukraine and Belarus as places to actually hire for engineering staff. And because of geopolitics over the last 12 weeks, the question will become, does that actually become a limiting factor to those entrepreneurs who are trying to build businesses here? I think Zoom will probably slightly offset that. I was talking to an entrepreneur earlier, and they were saying, no, we're now going much more remote. So where historically we were looking for physicality of people in local jurisdictions close to Estonia, we're just hiring in a much more broader fashion. And whether that allows the continuous growth which exists in Estonia to continue going forwards, or will there always be the kind of quite back to office moment, which will kind of choke things off?
Do you think, like off Estonia topic, do you think this is replicable in any bigger economy? In the US, of course, the UK, Brazil, doesn't, like any country with like 100, 200 million people. Clearly, again, 10 unicorns. I also heard there's 120 support institutions for startups in Estonia, which is outstanding, of course. You mentioned the government's work as well. Is this replicable at large scale somehow anywhere, to some degree at least?
Sorry, I'm going to cut across.
No, go ahead.
The thing I personally think is the reason it works is actually not because it's big, it's because it's small. And it's what I'll call entrepreneurial density. And it's not because people are stupid in terms of being dense, but it's because there's so many per square foot of people actually operating in the same space and kind of constantly engaging and bumping into each other. There's a bit of it now reminds me of Tel Aviv in Israel. And also what's actually happening is as the bar has got raised in terms of the ambition and the capability and people demonstrating what they can do, what it actually does is it goads on other entrepreneurs to go, that's a really shit startup. You should do something better than that. Yeah. And you can see people actually challenging each other to say, why are you doing that? That's not ambitious enough. And so it suddenly becomes slightly self-perpetuating, but it's because of the close engagement of the community with each other. Yeah. And also that exists because what's very different here is the number of degrees of separation between the local population and entrepreneurs and people like Ragnar or Tavid are really short. And the way they've made themselves accessible to others actually is something to be held up and shown as an example. Whereas in other locations, I would argue some of those founders will keep themselves more at a distance. There's a much more friendly and cooperative type environment, I think, here than elsewhere. Big cities means that they're spread out. Sorry, the punchline. Sorry,
yeah.
That was me.
And I mean, I would agree. I think where I've seen it in the U.S. be successful is when you have little, very specific pockets. So, like Pittsburgh, you might not know, is like a robotics and lidar, autonomous driving was born there, kind of thing. But like they have this whole robotics row, and it's like they all know each other and they're all talking to each other. So I almost think. But that's not broader Pittsburgh, it's just a certain area. So I almost think it's like keeping it small and having the mentality to really share and give back. Like I think seeing the founders come back and invest and become angels or raise their own funds or do whatever, give back to that community and be a resource, I think is what makes it work. And
you mentioned before at the beginning supporting Estonian companies or Baltic companies going to the US, for example. Would you in any situation suggest to your portfolio companies, and if so, at what stage, to open an office in Estonia? I assume with all the 10 unicorns that the engineering talent is short, but that
would be a terrible idea.
Exactly, yeah. But
I don't know why you're doing it.
We're doing it here. Yeah, but we have 75 other offices globally, so this is like 76. But for obvious reasons, I think there's a lot of potential clients for us. But as a startup, at what stage? So we probably don't consider ourselves a startup anymore, but would you? So I guess no. Cindy, what about you?
I would not advise any startup to come here because all the good engineers will go somewhere else. Like, why would you join a late stage startup from another location? Because also startups are very emotive, which is you kind of want to feel part of something. And if you're joining somebody late stage, it's harder to create that emotional connection.
I think we have a hard enough time getting people excited about Dallas, so I don't know that
I get excited about Dallas.
I don't know that I want to offer
a
cool exotic location. I mean, I think it would be interesting to have them spend time here, and if they were able to get funding here. But I don't know, and it honestly would depend on the market and the problem they were solving, right? Like a lot of our companies, it might not be the right fit, So, one of our Estonian investments is 10 Lines. They're an autonomous striping robot, and we're very excited. They were our first co-investment with Terra Ventures, and we're very excited about it. There are obviously parking lots in Estonia, but I promise you there are about 5 billion more, probably only in Texas. So we really like our cars.
In Dallas, yeah.
We really like our cars, and we have lots of parking lots, and we have lots of big airports, and lots of things that need to be striped. So we're very excited. They're coming to visit us in Dallas and do a demo for our real estate teams and to show them what they can do. But if we thought there was a market here for whatever the business was, I think it would make sense. I think what's hard is, getting funding in those early days is hard enough.
So
wherever you are. So
basically, Estonia, you'll have to build more unicorns by yourselves. We're not bringing any more to be headquartered here, but it seems they're doing pretty well, so that's not a problem.
Yeah, y'all seem to be doing
fine. So far so good. Mentioned before, we're kind of slowly running out of time, but I mentioned before 120 support organizations for startups, government, 50 VCs. Does it become too many at some point? Like, how many VCs can there be in Estonia? Like, there must be a limit. I mean, that's like, Usain Bolt running at 100 meters. Like, at one point, we can't run faster. Where does this? Do you think we're good with that?
I mean, I think there will be a limit. I think there's only so much. I mean, I think the U.S. has seen it a lot where there were a ton of funds raised in the past couple of years when interest rates were lower and startups were overperforming and valuations continued to go up. I think the values here and things have been a little more reserved and as more proper, I guess. So I mean, of course, there's always going to be a limit. Although I can also see, a expanding pie for a little while longer, right? I mean, I can't predict where you kind of hit that inflection point, right? But I think there's still plenty of opportunity. And I also know that at least for me, I think it's Estonia, but then I also think this region in general is just so rich with talent and resources. And I think, a lot of the funds look at it more in the region as well. So I think there's still room to go.
Awesome. I don't know if we have time. We have probably time for questions. Can we do questions? Does anyone have questions, first of all? Oh, wow. A lot of questions. We didn't plan those, right? Just actual questions from the audience.
Hello.
Hi.
So I understand you both have, all of you have some kind of connection for a long time with Estonia already. The question is, how would you describe Estonian business culture and the values people here?
I think maybe Johnny should start with this one.
I would say an exceptionally good ability to speak English. I'm not just saying this because you're all there and I have to run out the back door in a minute and otherwise I'll get mugged. Is the standard of English in this country is exceptional compared to anywhere else in Europe. So that makes life really, really much easier. You're just pretty blunt and to the point. You're not quite as blunt as the Dutch, who are just plain rude. But I've got Dutch friends.
There's a lot of Dutch people.
And Ireland tends to be a bit like that as well. But you're open and you're honest and you take feedback really well.
Feedback is probably crucial.
I think what I would comment is that the feedback is in America you see a lot of ego and a lot of pride from founders, and sometimes that doesn't work very well if their idea isn't working how they planned, right? And so I don't think I've met any founder here that I felt any lick of that. Which you can usually sense pretty quickly into a conversation. And I think where the pride is in their product and what they're building, not in themselves.
Yeah.
The mugging part was a joke.
Oh, absolutely. I walked home. I walked home at like 11 o'clock by myself.
Yeah, I think we had
I saw on the other end.
One more. We have Chime, and then I.
You mentioned the government support. How does it look like concrete?
I didn't hear you.
The government support you mentioned. How does it look like concrete?
How does it?
Concretely, how is it government support? What is the government support in Estonia?
In Estonia?
Yeah.
Y'all would probably know that, but the development fund I know is a big investor in.
We had, even at an event like this, you had the president this morning opening, and you had the minister sitting on this stage in the morning. It was one of the first. This is my take only, and I think you had. I remember I was doing conferences in Japan as well. We had like the first European minister for technology or chief innovation officer in a country. So it clearly showed that there is government orientation, a little bit like Israel, to my knowledge.
Right. Well, even all this Startup Estonia, Invest Estonia. The amount of research and information we were able to find just from like the Estonia website, is unbelievable. And you can see the support for the technology and the development. And then I know the development fund, is that what it's called? There's Estonia.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're a big supporter of a lot of
yeah.
the capital invested here as well.
The thing I would say is, I think government support is good if it's directed in the right way.
Yes.
I strongly believe that government should follow the lead of the market. It shouldn't be dictating how things are done. I think Estonia has a very good in terms of light hand on the tiller to help support entrepreneurs, whereas in other locations, and I come from originally from Belfast in Ireland, and I'm actually back there next week, and my problem is they're so heavy-handed that whatever's being done in the local ecosystem gets completely tramped out. And you have all of these old bureaucracies that have pre-existing jobs for the boys that they sort of want to keep it to themselves, whereas if the private sector's moving forwards, they should be kind of following in behind. And so simple things like having a CTO, like you don't know this, but no other government in the world, I believe, has a CTO. Like
They head afterwards, yeah, but I think Estonia was the first.
It was the first one, but like that sort of forward thinking and progress makes a big difference.
Sorry, John, just for comparison, in Croatia now we have 2 unicorns, which is pretty successful. We're bigger than Estonia, doesn't say much, but like, and per capita we're doing really well. We're like top 5 there, top 10, I don't know, depending if you look GDP per capita or per capita. But we say in Croatia we have 2 unicorns, not with the government support or without the government support. We say despite the government, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the situation there. Hopefully will change at some point. But I prepared like a quick series of questions, which I kind of stole from CB Insights conferences I used to go.
I think we're supposed to.
Yeah, it's just like really quickly, 1-word answer: underrated, overrated. I'm going to throw some terms at you, and you can answer it just to see where we are. Okay, can I start? Unicorns, underrated, overrated.
Norm.
Overrated. Decacorns.
All right, early stage investment, underrated, overrated.
Underrated.
Underrated.
I have to say that, otherwise you don't have a job.
Yeah.
The metaverse. I know.
As somebody who's been around a very long time, the statement I can remember from 2000, which shows how old I fucking am, is in the short term, people overestimate the capability, but in the long term, they underestimate the impact.
Yeah.
That's what I think about.
I was going to say under because I think, I mean, if you think about the other versions of that have totally transformed our society and
I would say,
how we live our life. I think it's overrated from a perspective, but I think the opportunities are
If I have to pick, I would say overrated. Last one, very current, Twitter.
Awesome. Long may it continue.
Overrated.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much. We're done for the day. Talk to us later.